Hey everyone, it's Hannah. I wanted to quickly ask if you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in getting the show in front of other listeners. If you listen on a platform that doesn't do reviews, please follow us on social media, like the show, or leave a comment. Thank you. We love you guys, and we hope you enjoy the show. You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Welcome!
So, new mic update.
Yep.
We're not using new ones that we were waiting on while recording the last episode.
Correct.
We're still using the old ones, but we've switched them up.
We swapped.
And so now I sound like a robot to myself. And it's really weird. I don't know how you handled this.
It's
like 2 weeks in a
see,
row.
this was the thing where I was trying to explain to Jarek, and I was like, I realize that this is a problem that affects no one but me, but it's very annoying.
It's very distracting.
It is, especially when you're the one doing most of the talking.
Yes. So, like, I think the first time it happened was for the Bone Wars, right? Or maybe it might have been a week before then.
I think it was a week before.
So it's been like 3 weeks of robot voice.
Yeah.
You got a little bit of a break by me doing most of the talking, but
It's true. Yeah, so we've switched mics because the mic Katy was using was the quieter mic, and
I'm
Katy,
the quieter speaker.
yeah, and we finally realized that does not make sense. So I have the quieter mic. I sound to myself like I am screaming into this.
That's how it felt for me.
Okay.
And I think that's probably why I was like, I turned the volume down on it, so that helped.
I'm going to turn mine down a little. Oh, that does help.
Yeah.
But I still feel like I have to scream into it because I just need to not look at the computer where our voices are being recorded.
Almost 3 years in, and 4 years in, and we are still figuring this out.
Mess.
I don't know why I'm stuck on why I think it's 3 years.
I keep thinking it's 3 years too. And you know what? Turning it down helped my robot voice a little. Turning my volume down. For me, it helped my robot voice in my head.
You have a robot voice?
A little bit of one. I'm probably just hearing the weird tin box. I don't know.
Oh, that's right. It does have a little bit of a tinny echo.
Yeah.
But it's nowhere near this.
Right. And unfortunately, like, our next plan for the mics is probably not going to fix that problem. It's just going to fix...
Just forget, after we're done recording, like, just leave this room and don't come back in here until tomorrow at the earliest.
Yeah. I just won't think about mics for at least the next 12 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, make it like 24
Yeah,
hours.
24 is probably good.
Give yourself a full day.
Yeah. I told Katy I was crying before she got here. So that's the kind of... But she brought me chocolate and wine, so...
It was like I knew that you were having emotional distress. Maybe that's why I forgot to bring the chocolates yesterday, because we didn't need them yesterday.
And I got pizza for dinner yesterday, so I was happy. I feel like I was gonna... Oh, I remember. I was like, I thought I had something for you. I ordered Walker's birthday present today.
Ooh.
And because I was going to text you, because, so for our listeners, he's turning 2. He's really into monster trucks. He's also really into cars that have doors that open that he can mess with. And Amazon doesn't make a monster truck with doors that open.
My mother-in-law was struggling to find them too.
It's a miracle that he got a single car with doors that open, because those are also hard to find.
We found there's I think you can buy them at Lowe's by the checkout. Have you ever seen the little they're bigger than Hot Wheels, but they're still pretty small. And they're not for children under 3. And I'm like, well, whatever.
My 2-year-old will have one.
I'll just always make sure he's supervised while playing with it.
Yeah.
But their doors open, and they had some. One of the vendors at the train show yesterday had some on his table, so we got one.
Very fun. Well, what I did get him, because it's not your birthday, so you don't have to be surprised. I got him a monster school bus with a door that opens.
Wow.
So I thought because
Wheels on the Bus is his favorite song.
And it has a door. The door opens in, so like I hope he's okay with that. But it's
a moving part.
And it has monster truck wheels on it. So I was like, this is a
so
weird
random
niche, but I know a kid that would like it.
And clearly he's not alone in that.
Exactly. So, and all of the reviews were like, I got this for my grandson. He loves it. I got this for my 3-year-old. He loves it. I was like, yes.
Cannot wait.
Store. It's between that and a regular school bus that had more opening parts. Because I was going to text you and be like, if he had to choose, would he prefer one opening part on a monster thing or multiple opening parts on a random vehicle?
I think he'll be excited to see like a monster school bus.
Good. And then I have something else for him that's a secret surprise.
I'm excited to see his reaction to seeing a physical monster truck because he only has seen pictures and videos.
Yeah.
So he's got that book of vehicles, but it's all like pixelated, like 8-bit images.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's the one where we'll look at it and we go to the monster truck and he does grabby hands.
Oh, so cute.
I know. It's adorable.
Oh, man.
And then we watch, like the Monster Jam has like videos on YouTube that it's like the best, the highlight reels of 2023.
Right.
Also, there's going to be a monster truck show in Raleigh this summer.
Ooh.
We are definitely going.
Oh, that's exciting.
So it'll be, because I don't think he's ever played with a monster truck. If he has, they've been like at school.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, so.
Nice. Well, today is also my oldest nephew's birthday. So I'm feeling, maybe that's why I'm crying all the time. My sister posted a picture. She posted like pictures of him now because he turns 15 today. And then in that group of pictures, she posted a picture of him when he was like 3. And I was like, oh, he's so like my heart. He'll never be that little again, but he was so cute.
Especially since he's so tall now.
I know. He looks like a small man and I hate it.
He's just so much taller than your sister. I mean, your sister's not tall, but she's
not
the
like same height as
short,
me.
Short.
Yeah.
So I thought she was a little bit shorter than you.
I think we're the same height.
Probably guessed about the same.
Because he's a couple inches taller than me.
Yeah.
Which I hate.
But yeah, like I saw she posted some pictures recently. And I was like, oh, he's so tall.
I know.
And so lanky.
I know. And I know that his little brother is going to hit a gross
awkward phase.
Yes.
Like 15 is still pretty awkward for boys, but he's probably on his way out of it now.
Yeah, he's definitely on his way out. And his little brother, Peyton will be 12 this year. And so I know that his growth spurt is just around the corner. And I'm like, I can't do it.
I feel like a little boy's awkward phase is like 9 to 13.
Yeah.
Or 14.
Yeah. Which that was kind of my awkward phase too. I was
feel
awkward.
Like girls are later. I feel like girls are more like 12 to 17.
Yeah. I think I was probably like 11 to 15 because 16 was my like
butterfly year,
blossoming year. Yeah. I like came out on, not really. That was much later.
Came out of your shell.
I came out of my shell when I was 16 and I just got like pretty and then it was all downhill from there. So
I was definitely a late bloomer.
But look at us now. We'll be
old.
I was going to say pretty for longer.
See, that was the thing is I always looked young for my age.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, it's really annoying, but at the same time, it's going to be in my favor when I'm like 40.
Yeah.
I'm going to look like I'm in my 30s.
Yeah.
So, woohoo.
That's how my best friend, Susan, she has a real baby face. And I think now she looks, I wouldn't say she looks like she's in her early to mid 30s. I think she looks probably more in her 20s. But
see, that
she looks
didn't
great.
Hold up for me. Like, I definitely look like I'm in my mid 30s.
Early 30s. Late.
Okay.
I feel like we can both pull off late 20s. Maybe.
I feel like you can more than I can.
Thank you.
But
just drink more wine until you believe that.
Yeah, because that's going to make my complexion better.
It'll make your eyes worse.
Yeah. And more glistening, watery.
More
glassy.
Twinkling. Remember that description? Who was it? It was an Alcatraz episode. Someone described, I think it was Ted, or someone they thought was him escaped. It was an FBI sighting, and someone said they didn't remember the color of the person's eyes, but they had a twinkle to them. Which is the weirdest thing to
twinkle, say. I think Santa Claus.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever met anyone that has a twinkle in their eye, unless they're like about to cry. Unless it's me and I'm about to cry.
See, I equate like a twinkle in someone's eyes as like a mischievous glint.
Yeah, more of a metaphorical twinkle than a real one.
Yeah, like you can see like, oh, there's a little sparkle in their eye, and it's either from like unbridled joy, but sometimes that's kind of the joy and excitement doesn't come out as a twinkle. I think it like, if you see someone like, oh, I'm about to play a prank on somebody, like your friends are standing around a pool and you see someone creeping up to push your friend in and they look and you make eye contact and they've got that, hee, this is going to be hilarious. That like excitement twinkle.
Yes.
That's
the look that I feel like the Parch Boys had for their whole childhood. Or I feel, at least Connor, I feel like my brother-in-law, all of his pictures when he was like 7 and older, he looks like a little devil. I mean, he's cute, but like he had that look on his face of just like, I'm going to do something stupid.
They still do stupid stuff.
They do so many stupid things. I'm reminded of the time that Connor lit Jarek's arm on fire as a fun prank in their kitchen, like last year. Okay. Well, here we are in episode 202, I think. No. Yes. 203.
Because we did the 200th, and then we did the Bone Wars, and then last week.
Okay. 203. I wrote it down wrong. Well, I have a question for you. And it's the same question that I opened up episode 24 with.
Lord.
I know. We're doing some callbacks. And I meant to listen to episode 24 and hear what your answer was then, but I forgot for many reasons. Okay. Katy, what is the most exotic meat that you've tried? I feel like you're a good one for this question too, because you're well traveled to places that have exotic meats.
Well, I do enjoy like, cow tongue, but like,
okay,
it's more. That's not necessarily an exotic meat. It's just an uncommon cut,
right?
So yeah, I'm very partial to lengua. I've had bison burgers. There's a restaurant in Tennessee that I had some. Their specialty was like exotic burgers.
Okay.
So I'm thinking ostrich maybe.
Okay.
Because I've had like ostrich jerky. Alligator might be.
I was thinking
alligator and ostrich might be my most exotic.
Okay.
Meats that I'm at least aware of. That's what it was. I mean, I've been to several countries where I've had meat and been like, well, I'm told that this is chicken or beef or something.
But
who knows?
Suspicious. Okay. Well, I feel like you said gator maybe in episode 24.
I'm going to look it up real quick.
Okay.
You enjoy food, correct?
I need it to live.
Yes.
Yes,
well,
actually, I love food.
I was going to say, your husband's a really good cook.
I like making it. I like eating it. My husband and I actually love cooking together. It's one of our favorite togetherness activities.
Yes. And you are not a vegetarian, correct?
No.
Okay.
I can never, ever give up seafood.
What is the most exotic meat that you've tried?
Wouldn't really count as meat per se, but I have eaten a scorpion.
Oh,
I almost mentioned that.
Was it like candied?
No, it was like grilled and like burned to a crisp. Like it was kind of crunchy, but then there were parts that was a little chewy, and it was just It was kind of flavorless, but it had a flavor and it was bad. And I'm also very frugal. And so this happened in Thailand, and everything is crazy dirt cheap there. And we're walking down the street, and we get our scorpions because your brother-in-law,
of course,
bought them and made us eat them.
That's why I don't travel with him.
And so I'm just like finally trying to get like the last little bits that are stuck in my teeth, choke that down. I'm like, I need water or a Chang beer right now. And we're walking down this busy street.
Right.
And there's tons of people selling, beer and water in ice chests.
Right.
And I'm like, 200 baht? Hell no. So I'm like, I'm desperate for some sort of beverage to wash this awful taste out of my mouth. But not desperate enough to spend like $1.50.
Oh gosh, Katy, come on. That's not even like stadium prices.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I go to a football
But also
game.
it was loud and it was a hassle and I just wanted to get out of there.
That's true. I think my most exotic meat is courtesy of you because I don't make a lot of
Gator sausage.
dangerous choices with my food. And the Gator sausage, which was like when we first met, I think.
Yep.
So you could say exotic meat brought us together.
That's a good spot to end it.
Exotic meat brought us together.
So I almost mentioned scorpion when you first asked, but I'm like, it's not really meat. And I was also like, do I want to say cuttlefish? Because that is more meat. Is it exotic? I mean, it's a kind of squid. People eat calamari all the time.
True.
It's just different. So.
True. Well,
is this another cannibal episode?
Kind of.
Yay! You did say it was a gross episode. That's right.
Yeah, it's real gross. The really gross stuff will be more towards the end. So I'm going to start with a urban legend that is local to Palos Park, Illinois. And I will go ahead and say I've said this before. I don't intentionally look for Illinois specific things. I was halfway through this story before I realized, oh yeah. And I did message Amanda and asked her if she
does she have a connection to?
Yes, she used to take like dance lessons or something there because she was like, yeah, I know where that is. I was like, well, here we story. Go. Okay, so this is the story of the Demon Butcher of Palos Park.
So their own Sweeney Todd?
Yes, kind of. So it is the 1890s, and we are in Palos Township, Illinois, it's like 25 miles southwest of Chicago. So not far from there. There's a man named Herman Butcher who owned and operated a local butcher shop, because back then your last name was also your occupation. So Herman was also known kind of as a bully, like just not the nicest person. And he had a young apprentice, and he was just like, I'm not like a huge bully, but he would like, people would hear them arguing because he would yell at him all the time.
I feel like in media and like just the image that my brain conjures when I think of butchers, it's like one of two stereotypes. They're both like typically tall, kind of bigger, burly men, not necessarily like, they're just like stocky with like big, strong, like muscular arms and like especially forearms because they have to cut through all that meat. Sometimes typically hairy arms. And one version, they are like that grouchy, kind of mean, kind of bully and tough guy.
Yeah.
And the other version is more like, like I would picture someone in like a Jewish neighborhood in New York or something, and like super friendly and knows everyone, real chatty, and they look the same, and one's either a grouch and the other is a super friendly one. But that's always like, you say butcher, and that's what my brain conjures.
Yeah. I was thinking of in the Stephen King novel about the Kennedy assassination, whatever the date of that is the name of the novel. It's like 11/3/63. Anyways, the TV adaptation, like the show that they made out of it, which stars James Franco, and in the book also, there's a butcher who is like really charming, like attractive, like well liked around town, but he also is like incredibly abusive to his wife and children. So he's like known to have a temper. Mm-hmm. So he's like kind of both of those.
Yeah.
He's like, but everyone loves him.
There's the front facing and the behind the mask.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, kind of a murder, because he kills his family. Spoiler.
That's not a spoiler if it's been out for a long time.
That's true. Okay, so Herman Butcher, I would say, is your first stereotype. Like probably more grouchy than well liked. And in the 1890s, meat prices were going up, and fresh meat became harder to find. And so Herman was facing angry, disgruntled, impatient customers because he was like, I don't have any meat. Yeah. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
I can only give you what I get, and
yeah, like the truck hasn't been here. I don't know what to tell you.
I wonder if that's the like economic shift towards more like industrial and like more businessy jobs, and less people farming, so less agriculture, more. Can I take a drink?
Take a drink. You're jumping ahead like way to the end, but still, I'm going to talk about industrial.
I'll still only take one sip for that.
Okay.
I could just your face. That was your take a drink.
Take a drink. Like while you're explaining it. Okay. So one day, he finally had a delivery of meat come in, and he tells his apprentice to go take it to the cellar where they're the meat locker or whatever. And possibly because the apprentice like didn't want to upset him by taking too long, or possibly just because he was like a teenage boy, he carried too much at once and he slipped going down the stairs, and he fell and broke his neck and died immediately.
Eesh, poor kid.
I know. So when Herman discovered him, he was like, oh crap, everyone knows that I'm mean to this kid, and I don't think
I pushed him down the stairs.
I don't want them to think that I pushed him down the stairs. I don't know what to do. But he's like, you know what? I'll deal with it later. And so he puts the boy's body in the meat locker, and he's like, I'll figure this out tomorrow or something, like another time. Out of sight, out of mind.
He's like, I finally have meat to give to my customers. I'm going to focus on keeping the doors open.
Yes. He's like, I've got other things to do.
Okay. How can someone compartmentalize with, like, how can someone just have a dead body in their basement and be like, I'm going to go about normal life and deal with this later?
Yeah. I mean, BTK did it. And I guess other serial killers.
I don't know. Like,
terrible at compartmentalizing.
I mean, I guess I could see how someone can compartmentalize. Like, that is a huge, like, shocking thing that's probably really hard to wrap your mind around.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to think too hard about it, because I don't ever want to be in that position of like, oh crap,
there's a dead body. I know. Well, a few days later, he's forced to think about it because the boy's father comes by and is like, have you seen my child that works for you? Because he hasn't been home in a few days. And Herman suggested that maybe he ran away. He's like, he doesn't like working for me. Maybe he just ran away. And the dad was like, okay, I guess you might be right. I'll go continue asking questions to other people. But then the police came by a few days later, and they questioned Herman. And like, presumably this is just kind of routine questioning.
No, they're following, this is one of the boy's normal places. Mm-hmm. One of the last places he might have been seen. Like, right. That's just seems standard to me. Not like, he's not a person of interest.
Correct.
They're just gathering info.
Well, but Herman starts to get nervous because he's like,
the boy's body is in his basement. Yes. I would be nervous too. It would be a lot of things.
He probably also figures out that like they will figure out that he was the last person to see him with, and then probably ask more questions. So he's like, okay, I've got to deal with this. And then it dawns on him that he can kill two birds with one stone, pun intended. So he goes back to his shop at night. He cuts up the boy's body into portions as he would a side of beef. And
except human meat is notoriously compared more to pork.
True. Well, and
it's white meat.
True. Maybe he labeled it as pork. I don't know. But he sold it to his customers, and his customers loved it. And he's like, cool, this fixes my dead body problem and my meat shortage problem. So he's like doing good for probably a couple days, maybe a week or two. And then he realizes that these people love this meat so much, and he is not going to have any more of it. And he's like, it might look suspicious if I only had this special meat right after this kid that worked for me went missing. Someone's going to figure it out. So I got to like keep this ruse up of like, I just sell really good meat. It has nothing to do with this. So he began to lure rail riding vagrants.
Hobos.
Yes. And drifters to his shop with the promise of alcohol, which I always think, I'm like, man, what a dumb thing to get lured in by. But then I'm like, on a day like today, I would get, if you had called me and been like,
if I'm walking downtown and there's a sandwich board out front that says free margaritas, you know I'm going inside.
Yeah.
I don't even like margaritas that much.
Well, and like,
but I love free.
You could call me and be like, hey, do you want to come over? I have a bottle of wine that we can drink. I'd be like, yes.
On my way.
You could murder me then. And then they could technically say I was lured to your house with the promise of alcohol. So no shade thrown to these rail riders. So he gets them to his shop. He will get them drunk and then killed them and then stored them in his meat locker and would process and sell the meat just as he would any other kind of meat. Well, eventually rumors start spreading throughout the unhoused community because they're like, a lot of us have gone missing. Suspicious. And they also had seen some of their like companions or whatever go into Herman's butcher shop and never come back. So they just stopped getting off the train in Palos. They were like,
we're gonna avoid this spot for a minute.
Yeah, we'll just put a bulletin out that don't get off there, or maybe just avoid a burly looking man offering you alcohol. But whatever. So Herman quickly is now out of this new meat supply, and presumably he's growing more desperate because now he's established that he's like,
I've got the goods,
got the good meat. So he began to kidnap local children.
Why does it have to be children?
I don't know.
Is the meat better?
Well, and here's the thing. Obviously, their parents noticed.
Yes.
Like, their local children.
Like, the drifters thing was a good idea.
Yeah. The children thing, I mean, I'm assuming because children are, like, smaller and easier to grab. But they also famously have people who are, like,
concerned about them.
Looking out for them. Like,
I mean, hopefully more concerned than his first apprentice's dad, who waited a couple of days.
I know. To be fair, that guy could have gone to the police, and the police said, he probably ran away. Let's wait 48 hours and see what happens. Although it was 1890s. I don't know how long cops have been like that. So parents are noticing, and they start talking, and before long, they kind of figured out that Herman was kidnapping their children. Part of the reason was they would see him watching kids from his butcher shop. And I'm like, well, that was a mistake on your part. Like, don't
be a creep.
Don't be a creep. It's gonna make you suspicious for more than one reason. So, as happens, an angry mob formed, probably mostly of parents. And they broke into Herman's shop while he wasn't there. So they broke in one night, and I'm not sure why, because to my knowledge, they didn't have any suspicions that he was
cutting them up and selling meat back to them.
But they broke in, and they discovered several dismembered bodies. Allegedly, the story says that one body was still on a meat hook. And so now they have this horrible realization of what has been happening.
And now they're like, holy crap, did I eat my kid?
Exactly. One of the realizations is possibly they might have eaten their own child. Horrible. I imagine some people are throwing up for multiple reasons. So now they are turning their very, very intense anger and disgust to Herman directly. So they go to his house the same night and they drag him out probably from his bed and they kill him on his own front lawn using knives, axes, and hammers. They cut his head off.
Say they chopped him up real good, huh?
Yeah. And they buried his head in Indian Hill Cemetery. And the rest of his body is said to be buried beneath a headstone that simply reads Butcher. And according to the legend, at night, you can sometimes still hear the sound of a cleaver against stone as the Butcher of Palos continues his grisly work from the grave.
You know, for a minute, I forgot that this was like a local lore.
Uh-huh.
And therefore, you know, who knows how true this is or not. And it's like, it was a momentary, like, just a quick second of relief of like, oh, that's right. It's just lore. It's just a story. And then you're like, no. And then I remember I'm like, no, people, this may not be 100% true.
Right.
But this exact kind of story or similar stories 100% have happened.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, nope, back to being very upset.
Yes. Well, according to Chicago historian Ursula Bielski, I think is how we say her last name. She looked into this.
How do you spell it?
Bielski. Bielski. I'm going to say
Maybe.
Bielski. So according to her, Herman's Butcher Shop, I put Herman Butcher's Butcher Shop, was allegedly in a building that is now a ice cream parlor. Fun fact, it's
another
called...
place that kids like to be.
I know. The business...
Or, well, a place you'll find kids.
True. Well, they like to be there.
Yeah, but they don't necessarily like to be at the butcher shop.
Oh, yes.
That's what I mean.
Yes. Good point. This ice cream parlor is called the Plush Horse. And I'm putting it on our list of stops for when we go to Illinois. It's got 2,205 positive reviews on Google and 4.8 stars.
All right, then.
And it looks adorable. It's like an old-fashioned
like
ice
soda
cream
shop.
parlor. Yeah. And they serve, I think they have like a variety of like dairy-free ice creams and a bunch of good flavors. I don't know. It looks cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah.
I feel like our like cross-country road trip is really just going to be a Illinois road
We're just
trip.
going to hang out in Illinois for a week or two and
Come
then
back.
take a plane to San Francisco. Because our road trip is also just a means for me to get to Alcatraz. Sorry if you didn't know that.
Oh, I'm fully aware.
Fully aware. Okay, great. Well, the owner of the Plush Horse was like, I have never heard of this story, and to my knowledge, there was never a butcher shop here. Like, I don't know what kind of research they did when they bought the place, but they were like, no. And upon further investigation, Bielski determined that there was not any historical record of a butcher shop in that building, nor were there any historical records of any of the events in the story. So, like, the mass disappearance of children would probably be something that would either make the papers or be recorded somewhere, you know, if like 10 kids went missing.
So this is 100% just a story, just
Yes.
a local legend that probably some older kids made up to scare younger kids.
Yes. So in all likelihood, the Butcher of Palos did not exist. But there are similar stories like this. It's not the first legend that has been invented about that topic. Mm-hmm. So famously, we have Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, I've never seen that movie or
It's
play.
okay. I don't love it. It was okay.
Okay.
Some of the songs are really good.
Oh, okay. I watch it for the music. But the character of Sweeney Todd first appeared in an 18-part Penny Dreadful story called The String of Pearls, a Romance. How? I don't know. But this was in 1846 and 47. So that's like how old Sweeney Todd is. It has since appeared in print, theater, music, TV, and movies. The most recent movie was the 2007 Tim Burton Johnny Depp thing. The most recent TV reference to it was 2023 in a show called The Horror of Dolores Roach. So if anyone wants to check that out. And in case you don't know the story of Sweeney Todd, he is a barber and he kills people in his barber chair and then deposits their body to his basement, where Mrs. Lovett disposes of them by baking them into meat pies that she sells at her pie shop next door. Yum.
Mm-hmm.
Meat pies don't sound good.
They are good. Like hand pies, like empanadas.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. That is not ever what I pictured when someone said meat pie. I was just picturing chicken pot pies, but not as good.
Yeah. No. Minced meat pies they're more like hand pies.
Okay. I also don't like the
like Hot Pockets.
Ooh. Okay. We should just call Hot Pockets meat pies from now on.
That's what they are.
Although I don't like the term minced meat, so
that's fine.
Let's keep that out of it.
Minced meat. Minced is it's just chopped up real fine and small.
I know, but I don't like it. Call it something else.
You're weird.
Call it chopped meat. Mince your garlic, not your meat. There's also a movie called, which I'm proposing this for movie night. I have a source for it, by the way. My friend owns this movie randomly. It's called Motel Hell.
I feel like I've heard of that.
Oh, well, let me tell you the premise. It's from 1980, and it's described as an American comedy horror. But what I read was also that it was meant to be serious, but they had such a low budget that it just kind of turned into like a parody.
I love those.
I know. So the premise is that there are sibling farmers, a brother and sister, who sell smoked meats that are very popular, but they are actually made of human meat. And they get the human meat by setting traps along the road to catch victims. And then they keep them in their body garden, human garden. I don't know. They bury them up to their necks and cut their vocal cords so they can't scream and feed them until they are well fed enough to then kill.
Harvest,
yes. And I believe the story.
So they turn humans into like root vegetables then.
Yeah. And I believe the story follows like a couple that gets trapped by them, and the fiance, the man, gets put into the garden, and the woman gets like kept, and then she like falls in love with the farmer, but she doesn't know like what he's doing. It's a weird. There was a weird romance in there.
Okay.
And also the farmer's brother is like a sheriff who comes around sniffing around. This is why I think we should watch it. It sounds great.
Yeah, no, sure.
Okay.
Definitely. At first, when you said it's like a horror comedy thing, I was like, oh, like Tucker and Dale.
Oh, yeah. No, just
different.
Meant to be serious, but turned out fun.
Kind of like Troll 2.
Sure. I've never seen that.
That's like, it's like critically acclaimed as like the worst horror movie ever made kind of a thing.
Nice.
It is a masterpiece of terrible. It is so bad it's good.
Nice. My favorite.
It's a cult film for sure.
There's one I saw in college called Pray for Morning, which I think I have on DVD. That I would also recommend as a bad. It's like teenagers go spend the night in a haunted house or whatever, but it stars one of the Twilight guys, the curly-headed one. It stars him, and he has a great death face. It's so great. It was such a very 2011-esque, where you're like, oh, that guy's from Twilight. Anyways. Okay. More recent rumors of human meat being fed to people unsuspectingly. Have you ever heard a rumor or like read one of those articles that's like, they found human meat in the patties at McDonald's?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
there's a finger in the chili.
Yeah. So, and I feel like it's not just McDonald's. I feel like you could insert any.
Oh, yeah. Well, the chili thing was Wendy's.
Yeah. Well, who else makes chili? In 2014, an article came out alleging that an Oklahoma City McDonald's was found to have human meat stored in its freezers, and that human meat was found in 90% of the McDonald's factories inspected. It was, in my opinion, very clearly a fake article. Like, it wasn't on The Onion, but it was on one of those. It might
as well have been.
Yeah, it was on one of those websites where they're like, obviously, everything we print is fake. And it's like, really just, I feel like people just know The Onion for that. Like, just don't come up with other parody news sites. It's too confusing.
Mm-hmm. But people can barely handle The Onion.
Yeah. Well, and some of those stories are too close to being believable.
Well, I haven't seen an Onion article in years. Like, is it even still a thing?
I think it is still a thing.
I haven't seen one shared or posted, probably because there's too many articles out there from, like, actual news sources that I'm like, this reads like an Onion article.
Yes, exactly. The Onion probably has run out of insane things to happen or to write about because they're like, everything's already happened.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? The real life is stranger than fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Onion's probably like, we can't be more ridiculous than what is happening in the world right now. So,
like, I would not be surprised if there's an Onion writer out there who was like, I have a great idea for a story. It's about a stingray who gets impregnated
by a male shark.
By a shark. And then they're like, well, that actually happened, so you can't make that article. By the way, I'm following Charlotte the Stingray on TikTok. She has not had her babies yet, but I'm watching.
Like, I haven't looked into it yet. Have they, like, done ultrasounds or whatever they would do to, like, confirm that she is actually pregnant and it's not just, like, a weird growth? That's, okay.
Yeah. And she looks very pregnant, too.
I mean, well, that's the thing. It's like, well, she looks pregnant, but is she?
Yeah. I think they've done an ultrasound because they've counted however many pups she's got in there. And it's funny because all the pictures or all the videos I see are her swimming around looking adorable because stingrays have very cute faces. Or I guess that's their nose that I'm looking at, interpreted as eyes. But in my opinion, they're just always smiling. So she's like swimming by, and then you'll see like a little shark in the background, and you're like, I know it was you.
Baby daddy's checking up
Baby
on Charlotte.
Daddy. Okay. So a not fake article came out in 2015. This was in USA Today, and they reported on a report that was done by Clear Food that found human DNA in 2% of the hot dogs that they tested.
Okay, so when you said that first article saying human meat all over, I'm like, yeah, I don't think it was human meat. I think it was human DNA, and they're saying it was, they found human DNA in the meat, and it's probably from people working at meat processing factories or somewhere in the production line who have gotten cut or hurt on the job. Yeah. And there may be a little bit of blood there, or maybe just...
I mean, I think they even said it could be like a fingernail or something. I mean, like...
Fingernail, sweat, blood, mucus, like...
Not maybe less gross, but...
No, like it might be saliva. It's just DNA is DNA.
Right. Yes. That's a great distinction to make. Because the article I read...
none of it is great.
My last point on this says, experts say human DNA could be from things like hair, not necessarily flesh. But this article did find, quote, hygienic or substitution issues in 14% of the hot dogs. They found that 10% of the vegetarian products contained meat, which I think is problematic. But
there's places like, so vegetarians, I forget which restaurants it is, but a lot of them, they can't get French fries there because a lot of them are fried in like animal fats.
Right. That makes sense. That sucks. I will say the sample size that they were working with was 345 hot dogs from 75 different brands. Which I don't know if that's
a small sample size.
Okay, I was gonna say that sounds very small to me.
Yeah, it does. Like for a study.
Yeah, although
it's a very small sample size, it's very concerning that it was such a high percentage for a.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I guess if you divide that by 75 and figure out how many hot dogs are testing from each company, it is very alarming that 14% of them had, and I assume substitution issues means there's things in them that are not listed. There's like meat in them not listed as being part of it.
Well, hot dogs are just disgusting things in general. I do not like hot dogs. Oddly enough, I like corn dogs.
Corn dogs are delicious. Because if you wrap it in cornbread.
Yeah. And fry it.
And put it on a stick. You know.
They hand me a hot dog? Yeah.
Ooh. Well, as you alluded to earlier, there are some actual cases similar to our demon butcher of Illinois. And they're the two that I'm going to briefly tell you about are two that we covered in episode 24. So
chili, right? And then there's like the barbecue place.
One is a roadside barbecue.
Yeah, I remember that one. And then
the other one is Carl Denka. He was known as Papa Denka. Also, props to me in episode 24. I gave myself pronunciation guides for these. I was like, damn, why did I ever stop doing that? Because I got lazy.
You got lazy.
Yeah.
It's totally understandable, though.
That's fine. I'm like spending all my time trying to figure out our stupid microphones. So
and then crying about it.
And then eating chocolate and drinking wine. So Carl Denka, which I did not provide you with any pictures today. Sorry.
What were you saying about being lazy?
Listen, I finished this episode an hour before you got here. And then I cried. So Carl was born in 1860 in Münsterberg, Prussia, which I believe is now Poland. When he was older, he was very well liked in his community. He was an active church member. Red flag. And he was known to provide like for the needy and the unhoused community. Like he was generous and charitable. He ran a successful shop where he sold pickled pork and leather goods. Pickled pork. This is not the last time we'll talk about pickled meats. Disgusting. And I like clicked on the little like link on the Wikipedia page for pickled pork, and it even not what he was selling, like even modern pickled pork looks disgusting. Like,
is it pickled to the point where it's like kind of cooked, kind of like ceviche, or
I don't know,
is it like seriously brined? Because like whenever I get pork chops, I will brine them. You know, it's basically just soaking them in like salty water with some herbs and spices.
Yeah.
And then I, wrap them up and put them back in the freezer. So then I'm like, okay, I need to throw together a quick dinner, pop those out, defrost them, and then season them and fry them or bake them or whatever. And they're nice and like tender and juicy and just real good.
Yeah. I don't know.
But like, I mean, that's where is the line between brining and pickling? Like, what's the purpose of pickling?
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up right now.
I mean,
pickled pork, what is it?
Pickling, is a way I think of like salt curing.
Yeah.
But pickling is, in my mind, liquid, right?
Yeah.
And then salt curing is literally it just gets packed into dry salt. And the salt dries it out and acts as a desiccant. So like, is pickling another way of like preserving and prolonging like shelf life of meat at, I guess, room temperature? Like before the days of freezers and refrigerators?
So what I am reading, this is called Pickled Pork, a staple of Cajun and Creole kitchens. Let's see. So yeah, before the advent of refrigeration, preserving foods was a challenge. So some cultures developed a version of pickling or preserving in a salty brine or vinegar. And you could add herbs, spices, cinnamon. No, don't do that.
The brine recipe I use has a little bit of brown sugar. It's not just salt; it's also sugar.
Brown sugar sounds good,
but
cinnamon doesn't.
A small amount. Some I think call for anise.
Okay.
Which, in my brain is
salt pork. Okay, is the food being processed has a high enough water content, it can be packed in salt, which is different. My understanding is that it's still raw, and I'm basing that on these pictures. And also, I don't know. I'm going to say pickled pork is still raw and maybe just really well brined and preserved.
But does that mean it can be like, it's like shelf stable, like at room temperature kind of a thing?
I don't know. Anyone know about pickled pork? Sounds gross. Maybe I should
whole
look
new thing. I'm going to go hyper-focus research in a little bit. Pickled meats.
Yeah. All I can think of is there's like some kind of Russian dish that's like it's like a combination of like a jello mold and also meat and
aspic or whatever, right?
All I know is that like looking at pictures of it turns my stomach. It's bleh. Oh my gosh. This is 2 weeks. Yeah. But I don't know if that's refrigerated
aspic.
Oh,
it's the savory clear jelly prepared from a liquid stock.
Gross. Savory jelly.
Mm-hmm. The aspic congeals when refrigerated from the natural gelatin because the stock is made from the bones.
Right.
Who still eats aspic?
Russians.
Central, Eastern, and Northern Europe.
Although the most Russian cuisine I know of is borscht, which I've always like looked down upon until I realized that I like beets. And so now I'm like, maybe borscht is good. I don't know. Anyways, back to Carl and his pickled pork / leather shop. On December 20th of 1924, a local unhoused man named Vincenz Olivier. Vincenz Olivier. That's what we're going with. Oh no, what is that?
Perfection salad.
What's in it?
I see celery, olives. That looks like cubes of cheese. In green jello. Well, this is perfection salad.
Okay.
It's like carrots and cabbage. Hold on. Wait. Oh, here we go. Here's the recipe for perfection salad. It's gelatin.
Of course.
So there's a can of apple juice, half a cup of lemon juice, a little bit of vinegar, shredded carrots, sliced celery, shredded cabbage. Like, so basically slaw.
Yeah.
Green pepper and pimentos.
Oh.
And so basically all of those vegetables, I guess, get chopped up and then mixed in with, I guess, apple juice and gelatin. My friend Dan has.
Is it like sweet? Is it a sweet dish?
It's savory in a way, I think.
Oh, I can't handle that. So that's.
Oh, I don't know what this is, but there's a picture of a jello mold with like, I guess, lemon slices and cherry tomatoes sliced and like leaf lettuce all around it.
No.
And the tagline: in Adair, Iowa, you learn early what goes best with ham.
Oh.
Jello.
Gross.
So
I feel like
gelatin salads. One of them's right with what you're making tonight.
One of them is right.
Great with grilled ham. Creamy pineapple salad. Great with baked ham. Pineapple lime temptation. I think that's what this is. I think those are pineapple slices.
You know what else
next to the cherry tomatoes.
You could just put some pineapple.
With the lime jello.
Just serve pineapple. You don't have to make a jello to go with it. I haven't had jello. Oh no. I think the thought of combining vegetables with jello is also really freaking me out. Because like I don't like to mix my fruits and vegetables together. Those need to be separate.
Well, also jello, like if it's just gelatin, there's no like real flavor to just straight gelatin.
Yeah. But the first one used applesauce or apple juice, which I'm like, that's a sweet juice.
Bounce a church supper. So this one I think uses lemon Jello.
Gross. I feel like we should oh no. Oh, that's
I'm gonna
awful.
make you a salad perfection.
I was gonna say we should I bet we could thrift an old like 1960s cookbook that wouldn't like, because I think it was the 60s or the 70s when Jello was like,
well, Jello made a comeback, but I think the original perfection salad was like 1904.
Oh, well, I'm definitely thinking of like a 1960s cookbook or 70s cookbook, because I've seen them where they have just like a million Jello recipes.
My friend Dan has one.
Okay.
And he's made things from it.
I'm like, I don't want to waste food, but also I feel like that'd be a fun concept of like everyone bring a different Jello dish, but don't be wasteful. Everyone has to try some. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe I'll make one at our next Halloween party.
There you go.
Because that's definitely horror food.
Yeah. Maybe I'll make one and bring it to movie night.
That works for me too.
Okay, great. Oh, okay. Back to poor Vincenz Olivier. So he comes stumbling into the streets from Carl's apartment with a massive head wound, just bleeding everywhere.
As head wounds are wont to do.
Head wounds, they're bleeders, you know.
He's a gusher.
So neighbors come to help. Like, what is going on? And he tells them, presumably while he's getting bandaged, that Carl, Papa Danka, tried to kill him with an axe. And thankfully the neighbors are like, okay, let's call the police for that. Because the police come and they arrest Carl, who is 54 at this point. Carl claimed that Vincenz had attacked him first and that he was just defending himself. But he's being held like for questioning or detained or whatever. 2 days later, they find Carl dead in his holding cell because he has hanged himself.
Probably because he knows the police are going to go look at his place and start putting two and two together.
So the police go look at his place, and this is what they found. They found a ledger containing 31 names, including Vincenz, of people presumably that Carl had killed. Then they found a whole bunch of bones. Per my last notes, I counted, and it, because my last one, I listed every kind of bone that they found. I just added all those up. 413 individual bones. Human bones, if that's not clear. They found a barrel of a salt mixture that he was not using to salt cure. He was just using it to dispose of the bodies. Which I guess, I don't know. Maybe it was a salt mixture that was dissolving. I don't know. I copied a lot of my notes.
I mean, that would dry things out. Like, unless he's like stuffing the bones and any other waste products like in the barrels and then being like, oh, I'm getting rid of this salt.
Yeah, maybe.
And like using it as a transportation or like a some way of moving.
Yeah. I don't know.
Without, like walking around with a bag of bones being like, oh, just taking these animal bones out to somewhere. Throw them in the creek. That's what I do with the animal bones that I find on our property. Sorry, that Olive finds. It doesn't happen often.
Sure.
It's happened like 3 times maybe in the almost 4 years, three and a half years that we've had the property.
Yeah.
That she's come trotting up, happy that she found a bone, and I'm like, I'll let you chew on that for a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. You've like cut yourself or you're starting to splinter it. Nope.
Yep.
And so like I can't throw it into the woods. She just
She'll
go find it. So throw it into the creek.
Ooh.
It's just a bone.
I know, it's just a bone. But not knowing where it came from, I think would freak me out the most.
It's hard to tell, like on the latest one, because it was not this past time, but the time before. She found one, And I would wager it's part of a deer.
Okay.
Most likely part of a deer. It could be like a coyote or something.
Right.
But we definitely have deer around.
Yeah.
She's chased several of them. They poop in her field and she eats it sometimes because she's disgusting. But also, like, we've heard, gunshots around too. And I think the people that own the property on the other side of the creek from us use it for hunting.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, that makes sense. The minute she brings you a femur bone, though, you should maybe get that looked into.
Well, if it's a femur that is clearly a human-sized femur, then yes, I will report that.
Actually, what you should do is you should measure it against your thigh bone or thigh and see if you can figure out how tall, because it might be a giant bone.
Probably.
I mean,
It's gotta be.
It's gotta be. Okay. What else did they find besides this weird salt mixture that we can't figure out is for?
And the hundreds of human bones.
And hundreds of human bones. They found shoelaces, belts, and suspenders made of human flesh. He did an Eddie Gein and made his own
leather products. And presumably he was selling these. And they determined that the pickled pork that he sold was almost certainly human meat. I mean, if you can verify that basically if you've got a lot of like leather products and meat and then clearly human bones,
you're like, we're not accounting for one part of the human.
Like, I mean, you could be like, yeah, it's possible that this is animal leather and animal meat.
And he just
But why do we have all of the human bones? Like, Occam's razor here. The simplest explanation is most likely the explanation.
Yes. And also, why would he...
we don't need to DNA test this meat. We are pretty sure.
Yes. That's also the 19...
Yeah, DNA doesn't exist at this point.
Yeah, 1924.
I mean, it exists. DNA testing.
Do you know what else was happening in 1924? I was reminded of this yesterday because I wore the shirt. Albert Ostman was getting kidnapped in 1924.
He was going on a grand adventure.
He was going on a little adventure, yes. And he was making great scientific discoveries about female Sasquatch for all of us. I found that shirt it was one of those things where you just grab the first thing that you find. And I was like, oh, I haven't worn this in a hot minute. And I was looking at it when I was brushing my teeth and I was like, 1924. For some reason, I thought it was earlier than that. But maybe not. Okay. Anyways, skipping ahead a bit and crossing the pond back to America. The next person we have is Joe Matheny. He was born in 1955 in Baltimore, Maryland. My notes on him did not make any sense to today me, so I had to go back and kind of research him a little. But he had a troubled childhood, and then as an adult, he became addicted to cocaine and heroin. He spent most of his money on drugs and alcohol, although he held a steady job as a forklift driver, which good for him. And he was also described as, quote, intelligent, well-spoken, and very well-mannered. Which I'm going to challenge.
So he was a junkie, but he was a nice junkie.
Yeah, but I'm also going to challenge the well-mannered part because everything else after this I'm just going to say no. I'm calling bullshit like I called on what's her face, daughter Smurl, telling everyone about her weird sex dream.
Yeah.
So between 1994...
I'd successfully forgotten about that.
Well, it was yesterday when we talked about it.
I know. So. I made it a full 24 hours not thinking about it. It never popped back up into my brain. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. I like to make my problems everyone's problems. So here we are. So between 1994 and 1996, Joe randomly, killed between 7 and 13 people. And that's according to his later confessions. These included his ex-wife and her boyfriend, and multiple women who either would or wouldn't have sex with him. Like, the circumstance, like, it was like, this woman wouldn't have sex with him and he got mad and killed her. This woman he had sex with and then killed her. It's like the Madonna
and the whore thing.
Yeah, so I'm like,
he hates her because she's a prude and, you know,
right.
like, she's too good for him. But then there's the, like, oh, you slut.
Yeah.
You whore, you easy woman, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand why men get so... I'm not going there. I'm not going there.
Why is our sex preference a problem to anyone? In December of 1996, he was arrested because he asked a friend to help him bury a body. And the friend was like, yeah, sure, I'll be right there. Hold on. I'll be right there. And then called the police.
I'm definitely not going to make another phone call.
Don't worry. I'll meet you there. I just got to run into this payphone real quick. In his confessions, he told police that he had lured 2 different women to his trailer at different times, killed them, cut up their bodies, and stored them in Tupperware containers in the freezer. Like, again, I don't know why he was killing people unless he... This is what I'm saying. I don't feel like he was well-mannered because I feel like he just had a temper because he's randomly killing people. During this time, he also opened an open pit beef stand on the weekends and sold, quote, roast beef and pork sandwiches. A quote from him.
2 separate sandwiches are the same thing as, like, they're a pork tenderloin with, like, some shaved beef on top and like some gravy.
I think they're 2 different things.
Okay.
Which I might go on the record here and say I think roast beef is disgusting and should not be a meat product.
I like roast beef.
I hate it. That's why it's part of the reason I won't ever eat at Arby's, even though I know they sell things other than roast beef.
What do you have against roast beef? Like,
I think,
if anything, hate meatloaf.
Well, I don't eat a lot of meatloaf. The last meatloaf I made was not good. I don't know. I think it's a combination of, like, the color, the texture, the flavor a little bit. I will never, ever, ever request or voluntarily consume, like, a roast beef sandwich.
Will you eat pot roast?
It's not my favorite. I'm not a huge pork. Well, I'm talking about a different animal than pork here. I know. Well, listen, I'm not a huge... I was trying to think of how to categorize it. I don't love pot roast. I don't love... what was the other one? Pork chops. I don't love pork chops. Like, I really like if I'm gonna eat a cow, I want it to be on a burger. Or, like, maybe ribs I'll eat. And
what
then
about regular steak?
Not my biggest... I'm not a huge fan.
You've eaten both steak and pork chops at my house
when
recently.
When did I eat pork chops at your house?
Like,
the steak was good.
Ago.
The steak was good. Because Jarek made fun of me for it. He's like, does Katy know you don't like steak? And I was like, it's not my favorite, but the way she made it was good. What? I don't remember.
It wasn't even my best steak.
I don't remember eating pork chops at your house.
I feel like you were there for a pork chop night once.
I don't know. I'll eat almost anything to be polite.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Well, see, I don't like ham. Ham is gross, but I'll eat pork chops.
I don't like lunch meat ham. Yeah. No. But like a good
or like Easter ham.
I don't like a big ham that we cook. I like a country ham, mm-hmm. which I should be grossed out by because those are so salted that you can just like leave them out.
Yeah,
my mom did at Christmas.
Shelf staple.
She left the ham out on the counter. Like, she put it in obviously a container, but she left it out on the counter, and I was like, I know that there's so much salt in this that it's probably fine, but I think eating room temperature ham is just not doing it for me. I was like, can we put some of it in the refrigerator so that when I make a ham like biscuit, it has the right temperatures for me? I don't know. It was delicious, Mom, if you're listening. The ham was delicious. Please make it every year, but let's keep it in the fridge if we can. Or let's keep part of it in the fridge. Okay, this is a quote from Joe. he said the human body taste was very similar to pork. If you mix it together, no one can tell the difference. Which I would argue is true for any meat.
Yeah, a lot of things.
If you mix it together and with enough other stuff, it's probably fine. He was ultimately sentenced to 50 years and 2 life sentences. And in August of 2017, he was found dead in his cell. I don't know from what. I did try to relook that up, and it just said he was found dead. And then this is his like famous alleged quote. He said, "The next time you're riding down the road and you happen to see an open pit beef stand that you've never seen before, make sure you think about this story before you take a bite of that sandwich. Sometimes you never know who you may be eating."
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Which,
You.
so gross. I don't know why it makes,
I thought he was so clever.
I know.
You know, he was like, I'm so proud of
So
myself
smart.
on that one.
It makes me think of that Chick's song, Earl Had to Die. But only because they open a roadside stand, not where they serve meat, but they open a roadside stand where they sell, what is it? Oh, well, Tennessee ham and strawberry jam, I think is the line.
I don't remember.
So the Tennessee ham might have been Earl because they had a body to get rid of. After that verse is when they got rid of the body. So I don't know.
So now you're realizing, oh wait, no, actually.
I'm going to go back and re-listen to that song. Okay. So those are 2 very extreme cases, right? Like you're probably not in we don't live in 1924 Poland.
We don't live in 19 anything.
We don't live in anything. And I would argue that I would probably not eat meat from the side of the road stand.
Those like little kind of like pop up or hole in the wall places have some of the best food sometimes though.
I feel like it's just so hit or miss though.
Again, I don't care for pork barbecue. Like
Yeah.
it is not good to me. But beef barbecue, okay.
Yeah.
But again, I make the safe option by avoiding pork from strange sources.
Yeah. I don't know. I know what you're saying, but I feel like those places are hit and miss because the last place that Jarek took me to where he was like, I remember stopping here with my dad and it was so good. And it was this like little hole in the wall gas station on our way out of Tarboro to probably New York. And we stopped there and the food was gas station food. Like gas station buffet food. And I was like, I feel like you owe me a better meal after this because this was not good.
Meanwhile, whenever you come up to the cabin, we're going to go to Robert's, which is the gas station just down the road from us.
Okay.
And I mean, it's just, it's your hamburgers, chicken sandwiches, chicken dinner plates, like fried chicken legs and quarters and whatnot. And also breakfasts, and the biscuits are great.
Nice.
It is a gas station. Little convenience store with a restaurant in there, and it is really good food.
Okay.
I mean, it's like you know you're not getting like 5-star cuisine,
right?
But like it's good for what it is. You're like it's just a simple cheeseburger like you'd get at like a family cookout,
right?
But it's still really good.
Really good.
There's also Ma's Hot Dog House that's up in Kinston.
You just told me you don't like hot dogs.
There's more than hot dogs. Their chicken sandwich is great. The cheeseburger, again, like it's just patties with like bunny bread buns or whatever. But it is better than anything you'd get at a McDonald's.
Well, I believe that.
It's nostalgic, and like this is just a simple like I go into like a Sunday cookout.
Yeah.
Where there's burgers and hot dogs. Yeah.
Well, as we know, McDonald's uses human meat, so
human DNA.
Sorry. No, that was the hot dog study. Okay. So extreme versions, right? Mm-hmm. Serial killers and then legends. But because this is a local lore episode, I have to also tell you some reality parts. So, during the Industrial Revolution, call back,
as I mentioned.
Do you know, by the way, the years that are technically considered the Industrial Revolution?
So like 1870 to 1910 or so?
No.
Nope. I don't know then.
Well,
I've always been terrible at dates.
Well,
that's why I hated my history classes for so long, because there was such an emphasis on remembering the dates that things happened as opposed to the events themselves.
Yeah.
And like my brain just was not wired to understand that. And as soon as I gave up trying to like equate history knowledge with dates, I enjoyed history a lot more.
Nice.
So no, I don't know when the Industrial Revolution was.
Well, I looked it up because I also thought kind of that range. According to the internet, according to Wikipedia, sorry, it was between 1760 and 1840.
Yeah. I thought it was, I thought it was like most of the 1800s and like into the early 1900s.
Yeah, I definitely thought it bled into the early 1900s. But I don't know. I mean, it probably did in terms of like people were still coming up with new things, but I don't know.
But that was just like when technology started exploding.
Yeah.
Like industrial based technology, because now we're in another like techno boom era thing where technology, like, because we were talking yesterday about transplants and stuff, and like someone getting a kidney transplant today is a completely different ball game than someone 20 years ago, and 20 years ago isn't that long.
Right. I know.
But you know, the advances of science, technology in the medical field.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyways,
during the Industrial Revolution, people could no longer really get their meat locally, right? Because this is also when people are moving to cities, and you don't have a farm right down the street where you can go get your pork.
A lot of city ordinances today don't even allow you to have like backyard chickens.
As they should not. Just kidding. It's just my one neighbor who has chickens that I hate.
Do they have chickens, or do they just have the rooster?
I don't know, but whatever they have is free roaming, and I hate it.
As I was walking out to my car yesterday,
the rooster was out?
I didn't see him, but I heard him.
Oh, gosh, I hate that rooster. So you couldn't get your meat locally, so you kind of had to get them from the store. Therefore, they're coming from
butcher shops.
Yeah, big, like big companies are kind of producing this stuff. And big companies like to cut corners because...
You don't say.
Money.
You don't say.
It's money.
I've only been trying to protect our river from pollution thanks to said cut corners by large companies.
Yay.
For years.
Well, also during this time, there were not any regulations or laws regarding food safety because they had never had to have those before.
The FDA didn't exist.
FDA did not exist.
Because up till then, everyone was growing their own food.
Right.
Or getting it from, like, their neighbors.
Right. They literally never before had they needed to make rules for this. Some fun examples. And there's a really good Stuff You Should Know episode that came out, I want to say a couple weeks ago. It's in my notes. But I got a lot of my information from them, and it's very good. So some examples. First one is milk, which I don't hate milk, but also I'm a little grossed out by it sometimes.
I think I'm a little bit allergic to milk.
Oh.
But it's weird. I can eat cheese and yogurt and ice cream just fine.
It's just milk?
But milk makes me sick. So, like, you know, I noticed this many years ago. I used to drink a gallon of milk a week, and I was totally fine.
Right.
Like, it was disgusting how much milk. I would just drink a glass of milk.
You know.
And then I started looking into, the vegetarian and vegan and, also not just the animal cruelty side, but like the environmental and impacts of the meat industry. And that's what started my journey that led me to where I am now. But I started drinking soy or almond milk instead. And then after a while of not drinking milk anymore, anytime I would go to like take a sip of milk or I would actually taste it, it smelled like sour to me. It tasted off.
Yeah.
And anytime I'd go order like a fancy coffee, if I forgot to ask for soy or almond milk, I would feel very ill afterward.
Ooh.
And then, of course, when I was breastfeeding Critter, I had to stop eating dairy for a while.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is I've just built up the tolerance. Like, if I stopped eating, cheese, ice cream, and yogurt,
Right.
I might, for a while, and then I ate it again, it might make me sick.
Yeah.
So,
well,
but I think it's also saying about like the process too, like the way that ice cream, milk, yogurt, butter is all processed versus just straight milk.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, back in the day, sometimes they would water down milk to make it to stretch the product. And sometimes they would water it down with just the water they had on the farm, which was like pond water.
Ew. Bacteria.
There was at least one study I guess it was multiple farms, but it was in Indiana, and they found insects, blood, pus, and cow manure in the milk.
Oh, you'll still find blood and pus in like milk and also meat products.
Don't tell me that, Katie. I'm going to eat dinner after this at some point.
No.
Gross.
Factory farmed meat is disgusting.
In the same study, they found, so when you water down the milk, they would put stuff in it to like make it look not watered down. But when you watered it down, you would lose the cream that would rise to the top so like people were used to getting milk that had cream on the top. So they're like, oh, we need to add that back in. And so they, I guess would just look for whatever they had. They like weren't going to invest money in this, obviously. So like, what do we have lying around the farm that we could manufacture to look or imitate this cream? So they used pureed calf brains. They were like, well, we're killing these calves, but we're not using their brains. Let's put them in a blender.
Who thinks to do that?
I don't know.
Who looks around at their farm and says, what do we have?
These, I don't know, farmers. It was also very common. So this is no longer that Indiana study. This was across the board. It was really common for formaldehyde to be used to preserve milk. And it was estimated.
How did people not die at much more alarming rates than they did?
Well, it was estimated. You can take another drink if you want to. It was estimated that 400,000 infants a year died from formaldehyde-laced milk. And that's just in America. So also there was canned roast beef. My two favorite things going together. And this was given to American soldiers as rations during the Spanish-American War.
Oh, I think I know this.
So the meat had been, quote, lying for years in the cellars. So it was essentially rotted meat, and then they would put it in formaldehyde or like inject it with formaldehyde to try and like
revive
it. And it notoriously caused like immediate sickness when you ate it, and also it killed like hundreds if not thousands of American soldiers who were eating.
How did they not smell the formaldehyde?
Oh, I think they knew that but it was like, these are our rations, this is what we eat. Jeez. And of course Congress was not interested in meddling in this because guess who was giving them lots of money?
Yeah.
The
Agro.
food corporations, yeah. So
Big Ag has been a bitch for years.
Yeah. Well, then it became 1905, and this socialist newspaper called Appeal to Reason published a novel in serial form. Do you know what novel it was?
No. I mean, yes, probably, but no.
It was The Jungle by Upton Sinclair.
Oh, okay, no.
So the original intent of the novel, because Upton Sinclair, I guess, was a socialist, The original intent of the novel was to expose the corruption in government and businesses and promote socialism. Like, the whole novel is basically like
Propaganda.
However, what most people paid attention to and what it is remembered for today were the graphic depictions of the conditions of Chicago's meatpacking plants. He actually went undercover for 7 weeks to research for this. And he investigated the stockyards, slaughterhouses, and meatpacking plants of Chicago just to write this book. And a quote from him, because he recognized too that, like...
And 120 years later, everything's still terrible.
Yes.
In those places.
Well, he recognized that people... He's kind of mad that, like, it wasn't turning people into socialists. And all they kind of got from it was, like, meatpacking plants.
Meat is bad.
So he said, I aimed at the public's heart, and by accident, I hit it in the stomach. So the book, The Jungle,
don't they say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach?
The way for social change, and I don't know.
Apparently not for social change, no.
Yeah. So The Jungle is a fictional story about a Lithuanian immigrant named Jurgis Rudkis, who comes to America in search of a better life. And he works at a meatpacking plant, a fictional one called Durham's. And the whole story is so depressing. It's just the story of his life falling apart because of capitalism. So, like, his entire family dies. Like, his first child dies, and then his wife gets pregnant via sexual assault from her boss, and then she dies, and then that kid dies, and then everyone dies. He loses his job. He loses his home. And then at the very end of the book, he finds hope in socialism. So it's very upsetting.
No desire to read this.
I have it from the library. I don't own it. But here are some things that he wrote about. I hope that he coined this phrase. Because when I heard it, I was like, oh, that's like a Southern idiom. It's not. It is from Upton Sinclair, where he said at the meatpacking plants, they used everything about the hog except the squeal. And they pointed out in Stuff You Should Know that when they say that, they don't mean like a ethical hunter who uses, they don't mean like, native people who kill a whale and then use every part of it for actual stuff. They mean they just used...
They ground it all up. Like,
yeah.
If you look at a lot of dog foods, like the cheaply gravy train, it's just like bone meal. And it's basically, it's ground up bones and like cartilage and other like throwaway bits from butchered animals that have just been all ground up together and mixed with a couple of other filler ingredients.
Oh man.
And that's dog food. I mean, unless you're buying quality dog food.
True. Well, people food, and this is your official warning. If you're eating anything right now, I would stop.
So aren't hot dogs notoriously made up of filler products?
Yeah, I think so. So what he saw, so this is what he is writing in the book. Men in the meatpacking plant would scrape and shovel meat and everything else off the floor and just put that back into use. Workers were often sick with things like tuberculosis, and so they would like spit on the floor, and so that went into everything. The floors were also bathrooms, human bathrooms.
I was about to say they're probably also covered in animal feces.
And human feces. Yeah. So urine and feces. And they described the floors as just being covered in like inches of blood, like all the time. I think one of the things they said in the Stuff You Should Know episode was that the wooden floors were described as spongy because they were just like rotted from all of the...
constantly wet with
yeah
fluids.
Men would wash their hands in the water. I'm imagining like a trough of water, but that water was then used to ladle, or they would ladle the water into the sausage mixture. Okay. Speaking of sausage, so the meat they would use for that was just laying in piles, just left out unattended.
Sausage is meat scraps. Sausage is gross.
Well, these meat piles had rats running all over them. They were covered in rat poop. Yeah. And speaking of rats, to try to get rid of the rats, they would put down poisoned bread for the rats to eat. And then the poisoned bread, the dead rats, and the meat would all go into like the mincer for sausage.
Mince your garlic, not your meat.
And this is a quote from the book. There were things, this is so disgusting. There were things that went into the sausage in comparison with which a poisoned rat was a tidbit. So he was like, don't worry, there's much worse things than a dead poisoned rat in here. This company sold potted chicken, and I'm going to tell you what went into that.
Not just chicken, I bet.
Zero chicken at all. So it was tripe. You know what tripe is?
Mm-hmm. Intestines.
Okay. Yes. Pork fat, beef suet, which is like the hard fat found around the kidneys.
Okay.
Cow hearts, and then, quote, the waist ends of veal. I don't know
so literally no chicken.
No chicken at all.
No even parts of chicken.
No parts of chicken.
More cow parts than chicken.
And I'm assuming that tripe is like white or lighter in color, and that was kind of giving it the color. Mm-hmm. Because in the deviled ham that they made, they used tripe, but they dyed it so that it wouldn't look white. They also used, quote, the waist ends of smoked beef. Excuse me. They used trimmings from ham and corned beef, potatoes, just throwing in some starch, and, quote, the hard cartilaginous gullets of beef after the tongues had been cut out. So that's your deviled ham. There was essentially no such thing as spoiled meat. So if meat had gone bad, you would just pickle it until it didn't smell anymore. They would get meat from Europe that had been rejected in the meat market over there because it was bad. And they literally said this was moldy meat. So think of our fun green oxen from the time slip episode. And they would inject it with borax and glycerin. They would also just like cut up this meat and turn it into or label it as something different. Or they would just put it in the sausage. Spoiled meat did not exist. We're not wasting meat just because it's been out for several weeks.
Or traveled in a boat across an ocean even after it had already gone bad.
Yeah. They had government inspectors who were technically present to, quote unquote, check the meat before it was processed. But they didn't enforce anything, and there was allegedly $2,000 in hush money that was paid.
I was about to say,
for them to
the inspectors were not paid by the government.
Right.
They were paid well by the food companies.
And so what would happen is if they said like, oh, this cow, I guess cows can get tuberculosis because that was mentioned a lot. So if they were like, this cow had tuberculosis, it's not fit for human consumption. The cow would be like taken away. But then it was either slaughtered later or anyways, I guess, just because the inspector wasn't going to do anything. Or it was, quote, carted away to be sold in the city. And there's a lovely description of cattle covered in boils being slaughtered. And they essentially said that the boils would burst when you cut into them. And then he was like, and then your hands and arms are covered in this gross mess and you can't wipe your face because okay, so all of that is gross, right? But that's not what we're talking about. We were talking about people in meat. So I'm going to tell you about some of the worker injuries that happened. And we'll start mild with your fingernails would get ripped off or worn away, I guess, from pulling cow hides all day. And this is, of course, like the assembly line had just become a thing. So workers had one job. Like your job would be
repetitive.
Pull the hide off of this cow and do it for 12 hours. Wool pluckers would have to pluck the wool from sheep, but only after it had been, quote, painted with acid to loosen the wool. And so their fingers would get eaten away by acid. People who worked in the canning part of the factory would often just covered in cuts from cans. Yeah.
Sharp metal edges.
And so there's blood poisoning that happens with that. Hands and fingers would very often be lost in any department. So the killing fields where you've got blades just going every which way, or like machinery that just takes something and doesn't stop. Those body parts, I mean, like if your hand or your finger fell on the floor, you're not going to stop and pick it up.
You just keep going.
The sweeper is going to sweep it up and put it in the meat. I mean, you might stop, I guess, but your finger is going into the meat.
It's not like they were going to reattach it.
Yeah, exactly. There were also stories of men who would fall into vats of boiling lard. And here are 2 quotes. When fished out, there was never enough of them left to be worth exhibiting. And sometimes they would be overlooked for days till all but the bones of them had gone out into the world as Durham's pure leaf lard. So just people falling in boiling vats of lard, and that goes into your... Okay. So unfortunately, when these claims... So, like, people read the book and they were like, what the is this? Is this real? Teddy Roosevelt was president at the time. He publicly said that he believed that 3/4 of the claims that Sinclair made in his book were false. He, like, was not a fan of Upton Sinclair, a lot because he was a socialist.
Yeah.
But Teddy Roosevelt had also fought in the Spanish-American War, so he knew about some gross meat. And so he was like, fine, I will send some people to look into this. So unfortunately, what they found was that not only was what was written in the book accurate, but like in some cases, reality was worse than that.
Well, because he was only there for 7 weeks.
Yes. And the really fucked up thing is that the factories that were inspected knew ahead of time that they were going to have
inspectors coming.
So
it's like they have a chance to clean things up.
And they did clean. They cleaned their factories. And still the inspectors were like
horrified,
disgusted by what was there. The official report on this was the Neil Reynolds report, because those were the 2 guys that did the report. They didn't specify, or they didn't specifically mention any knowledge or accounts of men falling into lard vats. But they also said that they had reported only, quote, such things as showed the necessity for legislation.
So basically there was some other things that were probably like, ooh, that's not good, but it's minor.
Yeah.
Like, we need to take care of these big things first.
Yeah. And also, like, if you're only there for an inspection, maybe you're interviewing people, and, like, I'm sure those people had been told, well, don't tell them about Craig who fell in the vat last week. Like, we still haven't gotten him out. So, like, don't mention Craig. Everything else you can talk about, it's fine. And Upton Sinclair said that everything he wrote in his book about the meatpacking industry was accurate. He had witnessed almost all of it firsthand, and what he hadn't witnessed, he had heard from interviewing people who worked there. And even though the Neil Reynolds report wasn't released to the public, people were so upset, just by these revelations that they pressured Congress into passing the Meat Inspection Act and the Pure Food and Drug Act, which later would lead to the FDA, the creation of the FDA. So my moral of the story, the first one is, if your great-grandparents lived in America, they probably ate meat that contained human flesh, or there is a higher than I'm comfortable with probability that they ate meat that contained human flesh.
Yeah, or poisoned rats.
Exactly. And also, if you find yourself in a time slip or you intentionally time travel back to pre-1906 America,
don't eat the green meat.
Do not eat the meat. It's not safe. And I thought of our John Titor episode because he talked so much in his posts about how he was super hesitant about eating any of the food in, was it the year 2000 that he,
I think it was around then,
was visiting. And he kept saying, like, I won't eat any of the food. I only will eat things that are, like, homegrown or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about, I guess if I went back to 1904,
I would also be like,
fun fact, I'm actually a vegetarian. I actually don't eat meat. But that is the episode that I'm calling You Are What You Eat. Literally and figuratively.
Yep.
So gross.
Yeah.
I was inspired by the Stuff You Should Know episode. I was like, that's so gross and disgusting. I can use that.
That was fun though.
Yeah, right? And I was gonna say
it was kind of a wild ride too, because you're like, the moral of the story, and I'm like, I don't even know. Like, we've been up, down, here, there, and everywhere. We've been all over the place.
Yeah, we probably could find multiple morals.
We started out with a local legend, did a recap of 2 semi-cannibals that we've already covered.
Yep.
And then, now we're going to talk about a fictional story and all of the very non-fictional research that this guy did.
Well, my favorite thing to do with local lore is, or like urban legends, is figure out
what's the truth behind it.
True behind it. And it's like, well, unfortunately, a lot of people have unsuspectingly probably eaten human meat or pieces of, definitely contaminated meat.
Oh, for sure.
Of some kind. So, and like 1906, like I was trying to think, because my granddad was born in 1917. So I'm like, his parents, although they lived on a farm. So
my grandparents did too.
Fingers crossed.
Or at least one side of I don't know much about my mom's side.
Yeah.
But my dad's side, I mean, I spent time on the farm.
Yeah.
Picking vegetables. I actually harvested a couple of little carrots today from my little garden. And my spinach is thriving right now.
Nice.
So might be able to start harvesting for some spinach soon.
Very nice.
But yeah, I got a couple of, they're small carrots. It was more like, okay, they're big enough that I could eat.
Yeah.
They could get bigger, but also they're kind of crowded. And so I'm like, I've got other plants that like I want to pull these to make room for the other ones to grow bigger.
Right. That's cool. We should make something with carrots in it.
I will be making something with carrots in it soon. Or I might just like chop them up and to make little bite-sized
You'll make a pot roast.
Probably will, because I do enjoy pot roast.
And then I'll be like, well, gross. I'm not going to eat that, I guess. Because now you know my secrets.
Yep.
Although the steak was really good that you made.
I make good steak.
I know. It's just not.
And that wasn't even my best steak either.
Well,
I mean, I'm sure the cheese sauce helped.
I was going to say the cheese sauce was perfect. On point, as were the potatoes, as was the company that it was eaten in.
Oh, critter.
Well, you too, Yeah. So anyways, everyone go enjoy a nice meat meal. Minced meat, I can't. I was actually thinking too of making chicken salad earlier today, and I realized I know one way to make it that's like faster if you don't want to, like, I guess, get a rotisserie chicken and or cook your own chicken. I usually cook my own chicken, but I know some people who just use canned chicken, and I'm like,
not anymore.
Not gonna do that. I'll just maybe skip the chicken salad. So,
well, I don't imagine that we'll have many pictures for today's episode.
I gotta think of some to post.
So if you want to potentially see pictures, You can check out our Facebook and Instagram at The Tales We Tell Podcast. You can check out our website if you don't do the social media, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. All of our pictures and other stuff is there. And if you want to support us and get yourself some sweet, sweet swag, you can check out our Redbubble store. Search The Tales We Tell. We've got multiple logos, and you can put that on anything.
Hell yeah.
And if you want to support us but you don't need this stuff, check out our Patreon. You can become patrons. Search The Tales We Tell. You will get some non-stuff stuff like early access, commercial-free listening. Sometimes we'll do, stickers and love notes and whatnot. But, yeah.
Great.
Walker is saying bye in a new way now.
Oh, what is
we'll
it?
play games. Like, he'll close the door and he goes, bye-bye.
Oh.
Bye-bye. I'll try and get a video to share with you, but
do we want to change our...
I think we should. We need to update it.
Okay. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.